Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to our programming in Python. This is lesson 6, our last one of the series that we've been doing. So it's great if you've stuck with us this far. It's great to have you back again. Today you've got myself and Corey is going to be giving me a hand during today.
Hi, everyone.
And we've also got Amanda in the background answering any questions at all that you have or giving us a dig out if we need it. So last week we worked a good bit on our lists and our while loops. And we kind of set you a little challenge to try and work on a little project we were kind of completing the last day. So we'd made a little shop and your shop had 3 or 4 items in it, hopefully. And we wanted you to be able to ask the user which item they wanted to buy. And the user would select the number of the item. And we'd kind of got that far the last day. But we wanted to give them multiple choices. So once they'd added an item to a list, we would ask them if they wanted to buy another item. And if they said that they did, we would give them the option to choose it and keep going and going until they said no, that they were done shopping and that this was all that they wanted to buy. And to do this, we were going to try and add a while loop into the code that we were working on the last day. So a tricky enough thing to do, but hopefully you were able to give it a chance, and we'll kind of work through it now and see how we get on.
Yeah, good idea.
Did you have a chance to try it, Corey?
Yeah, I did, and it took me a couple of attempts. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
It was more I had the code, but I didn't have it in the right places, which seems to happen quite a lot. You know, you have the idea and you know what you want to do, but it's trying to get it in the right place. That's what I struggle with.
Yeah, what comes before the while loop and what might go into it, and it's kind of just trial and error to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is kind of what we had the last day. We have our small shop. That's just a little comment. This is an online shop, and I've got 3 items in it. And then I've created an empty list here to store the items that I'm going to need. And then down here, I had a print statement to say, select the number that you wish to buy. We store the item number in a variable. And then if the item number we picked was 1, it means it's a basketball. 2, it's a football. 3, it's a surfboard. And then we add that item to the list and we print out the list. So that was great for one object. But if we're going to add in more objects, we're going to kind of need to think about it a little bit more and try and think about getting a while loop in. So I'm going to start by creating another variable here, and this is going to be called answer. And this might seem strange, but it just sets a variable to yes, and it means that for our while loop, when we set our condition, we know that it'll be true. So we'll definitely go into the while loop the first time round. So I'm just setting that variable to yes straight away. And then I'm going to create my while loop. So we practiced this a little bit the last day. So while answer equals yes, and I need to put that in quotations because it's a string, and then we have our colon. So while this variable is yes, we're going to keep doing this loop. But if we want it to be in a loop, we need to indent the code inside that loop. So I'm going to push all of this code in to make sure that the compiler or the computer knows that it is part of the while loop.
Very good. So, and after a semicolon, is it we get indented on the next line?
After the colon, yeah, we have to indent our code, and that means that it's part of this while loop. So I'm not going to, well, I could indent this as well. We might have to test that as we go. Yeah, we'll indent this last bit as well. But here, this bottom part, I'm not going to indent this because this is kind of the print part at the very end. So we've come out of the loop when we get to here. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right. Okay. So while answer is equal to yes. So the computer will only go into this while loop if answer, the variable answer, is equal to yes. And we've said that up here that it is. So at the beginning, it's going to be equal to yes. And it'll come in and ask this question. Select the number of the item you want to buy. It'll expect us to put in a number, and then depending on what the number is, it will pick the item and add it to a list. Once we get that first item added to a list, we're going to have to ask the user a question to see if they want to buy another item. Okay, so I'm just going to put in a print statement here. would you like to buy another item? Question mark. And then I'm just going to put in brackets, yes or no. And this is just to kind of say the only things that you can type are yes or no. If you put in yes in all capital letters, the computer will get confused and it won't think that that is yes in all small letters. So we just got to be a bit careful about what is entered here. So I'm going to create a variable, or I'm going to use my variable answer, and I'm going to let that equal to an input. So here, it's going to print out, would you like to buy another item? And then we're going to get the user to type in yes or no and save that to the variable called answer.
Okay.
And once we've done that, so once we've got answer typed in here, there's only two options it'll kind of be. It'll either be the word yes or the word no. And when we get to here, we're at the bottom of our while loop. So what the code does is it jumps back up to the top of the while loop and checks to see if this is true still. So if the user had typed in yes here, then answer is equal to the word yes. And when it goes back up here to check that condition, this will still be true. So we would go back in and we would do the loop again. But if we type the word no in here for answer, when we go up here to the top, up to the while loop, the condition, answer is no now. So when we check to see that answer is equal to yes, that won't be true anymore. So it won't go into that while loop and it'll skip down past it down to this piece of code here. Have I explained that well, Corey? Or
yep, definitely.
Happy enough? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I am.
So we might just try this quickly. We'll run this piece of code and see if it works for us. So this is an online shop and it gives me my three options. Select the number of the item you wish to buy. So I'm just going to press 1 here for a basketball, I think it was. And now it asks me, would you like to buy another item? Yes or no? So I'll type yes here to see if we can keep getting the program to move along. And then it offers me the choice to buy another item. So I'll press 2 again and we'll go one more time. I'll say yes, and I'll get a surfboard as well for number 3. And then this time I'm finished doing all my shopping. So I'm just going to type the word no, and this should stop my program, which it does. It goes down to the very bottom lines, which prints out you have selected, and it prints out the list of shopping things that we have bought. So yeah, and it works quite well. But again, it can be confusing to know where to put if something should be inside the loop or outside the loop. I know when I did this first, I had this print statement out here.
So did I.
Yeah, and then it doesn't print again, so it's not as clear, or it it can get a little bit tricky.
It's just trial and error, I think, with it, isn't it? Just playing around with the code.
Yeah, it really is, and maybe just doing a little plan before you actually dive into the coding part can be very useful too there. So that's kind of what we had touched on last week, and we're going to try and build on that a little bit this week. We're going to talk just briefly a little bit more about what we can do with lists, and then move on to some other stuff. Corey, you were going to kind of take us through a couple of things. Is that right?
Yep, definitely. Okay, so, sorry, have you here? Now, last week we covered lists, didn't we, Damien? We talked about the append method when it comes to lists. But this week, we actually just want to take it a little bit further. We want to delve a little bit deeper into what our list commands can actually do, okay? So we've used .append, which we know means just adding something to the end of the list. But some more common ones that we have are remove, pop, sort, max, min, reverse, sum. Okay, so we can do a lot with these. When it comes to max, min, and sum, we use them just a little bit differently, okay? Because all of these different commands, they're used for different problems, okay? And when it comes to max, min, and sum, we have to have numbers in our list to use these. Okay, and when we do use them, the way we write the code is a little bit different to how we write remove, pop, sort, and reverse. Okay, so let's have an example of this. So here I have my list, and it's a fruit list with oranges and bananas and apples, kiwis, and grapes. Grapes are my favorite. And then here we can see that we have our list, which is fruit list, .append pineapple. So Damien, what do you think is going to happen here with dot append pineapple? What will happen to our list?
So we looked at append last week, and that kind of means to add it to the list. So we'd probably get the same list, but pineapple will be in the list as well.
Brilliant. And it gets added to the end of the list. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
So it would be after grapes.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And then when we look at fruit list dot remove, we have then grapes. Dot remove grapes, I'm guessing literally just means take out that element.
Yeah, we're taking out your favorite, I think.
Yeah, oh no, devastated. And then we have fruit list dot reverse, which I'm guessing means go grapes, kiwi, apple, banana, orange. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, so grapes would be gone, and pineapple would be added. So we've kind of changed the list a little bit, but it should put whatever was last first and second last second and so on and so on. So it just turns the list backwards.
Brilliant. And then when it comes to fruit list dot pop, what are we talking about there?
So that's kind of one that the rest of them you can kind of figure out yourselves, but pop actually means it removes whatever the last element in the list is. So it's kind of the opposite of append. Append adds something to the end of a list, and pop removes the last thing. From the list. Yeah.
And then our last one here is fruit list dot sort, and this is when our list just gets sorted in some type of order, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. Depending on what's in the list, it's either letters or numbers, alphabetical order, or how big or small the numbers are.
Brilliant. So we can even see the answers here. So again, with append, we see that we added the pineapple. Remove, we removed the grapes. Reverse, everything's just backwards. Pop, we got rid of the last item, which was actually orange because we had reversed our list. And then sorted here, I think it's after sorting it in alphabetical order.
That looks right, yeah. So yeah, A, B, then K, then P, yeah. So they're pretty simple commands once you know that they're there. But and there's more of them. Like if you were to Google it or look it up, you could find so many different ways that you can do things with lists, and they can be very handy in different problems.
So useful, and they're just some of the most common ones that we'd come across when we're learning how to code.
Yeah.
And then we talked about our min, max, and sum, and how these are written a little bit differently when it comes to lists. So as you can see, beforehand it was fruit list dot append dot sort, but now what we do is we actually assign our min, max, and sum to a variable, and then we print out that variable. So here we have x is equal to min age list, okay, and then we're printing that out to the screen. The same with y, okay, our variable y is assigned to the max age list, and then we're printing that out. And then z is equal to the sum of the age list, and then we're printing that out. So they're written a little bit differently, but they still do amazing things. So here, if I was to say what's the min of the age list here, I would go with 6. So I'm hoping that's what the computer says. And then the max is 87, and then the sum, I'm not that good at maths, I am going to have to see what the computer gave. So yeah, 6, 87, and 151, okay? Yeah. So lists are really, really useful, and they're really handy, and the commands can allow us to do a lot of different things when we're solving problems. But this week, okay, we're going to be looking at for loops as well, because last week we had a look at while loops, and Damien just showed you there how you use the while loop in your home challenge. But for loops are a little bit different, okay, and they can be really handy. And there's 2 different ways that we use a for loop. And the first way, and this is probably one of the ways that I use it the most, is if you have a specific thing in your program that you want to run a number of times. So let's say you're like, oh, I want to run this piece of code 20 times. You can create a for loop for that, okay? Another way that we can use it is for when we have problems that start at a specific point and then we want them to stop at a specific point, okay? And I have an example under here just to show you. So here we have our variable total, and that's assigned to 0. And then we have our lovely keyword, which is highlighted in green, which I love about Python because it lets us see, it gives us that no, that's perfect, you're doing it right. So we have our keyword, which is 4, and then we have our variable, so a new variable called variable. Now we know for variables this could be called anything, couldn't it, Damien?
Yeah, any name at all.
Any name, Batman, Superwoman. The most common ones you'll probably see is like I, J, and K, isn't it? So like for I in range, but again, that's just the variable name, it can be anything. So for variable in range 0, 101, 1 total equals total plus variable. Okay, so you're probably wondering what is 0, what is 101, and what is 1? What does that even reference to? Well, 0 is our start point. So we're saying for the variable in range starting at 0, going up to 101, and remember 101 isn't included in that, so that's only going to bring us to 100. Okay, and then the 1 here is the step size. So what are we incrementing by each time? What are we adding each time? And then we're saying total, which is 0, is equal to 0 plus our variable, and our variable is going to be 1, and then it's going to be 2, and then it's going to be 3, and then it's going to be 4, all the way up to 100. Okay, so I think Damien is actually going to do some examples of this for you now in notebooks, just so how we can see for loops actually working in real-time code.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. So kind of exactly what Corey was saying there, for loops are so useful. They can just shorten our code and make things run so much smoother once we're able to kind of put them into our code. So from what Corey had kind of described there, we're going to try and code up a little problem. So we're going to try and use a for loop to add all the odd numbers between 1 and 10. And hopefully kind of from seeing how we do this, it'll make things a little clearer. So when we try and create a for loop, we have to have kind of a variable or a variable within the loop. Okay, so we'll start with our keyword, which is for, and I'm going to call this variable number. But again, Corey, you said it could have any name at all.
Yeah.
And we go in range. So this is kind of how we set up our for loops all the time. Now, I have to think about my problem here. So if I'm going to add up all the odd numbers between 1 and 10, Corey, you might be able to help me out. What would be the first odd number? Where would I be starting here if I was adding up all the odd numbers?
1.
Yeah, so we'd start at 1, and it tells us where we're supposed to finish. We're supposed to finish at the number 10. So I could put that in.
Probably go to 11, maybe, would it be?
That would be ideal. So in this problem, it mightn't make a difference, but you should usually go, or you should always pretty much go one above wherever you want to stop, because in Python, it will always stop one before whatever number you've said. And we saw that with indexing as well a couple of weeks back. And here, if I'm adding up all the odd numbers, the first odd number is going to be 1. The next odd number that I want to go to will be 3. So I don't want to go up in steps of 1 here. I want to go up in steps of 2. So that will be, these will be my steps. And you used a great word for that, for going up or down by the same amount each time, Corey. What word was that?
Oh, incrementing.
Yeah. So incrementing, if you're doing computer science or coding like past this, you'll hear that word a lot. And then, so once we've got our for loop set up, we can just print out our answer. So what I should really do is I'm going to just create a variable out here called answer, and I'm going to let it equal to 0. So this is just initializing it or creating it before my for loop, which is kind of a good thing to do just in case you make a mistake within your code. And I'm going to say that answer equals to answer plus number. And this might look confusing here, but what this does is it takes, on this side of the sum, it takes whatever answer is at the beginning. So answer at the start is 0, and it will add the variable called number. And the first time through the for loop, number is going to be the number 1. And it will add those, so it'll be 0 plus 1, which will give us an answer of 1. So now the number that's stored in the variable called answer will be the number 1. And then the second time through the for loop, Corey, what will the variable number be?
Well, it's going to be 3 then, isn't it? Because it's looking for the next odd number that's gone up by 2.
It's gone up by 2, exactly. So the variable number has changed for the second time through the for loop. It's going to have a value of 3 now, and it's going to add itself to whatever was saved in answer from the beginning, which was 1, or from the last time, which was 1, and then now answer will have a value of 4. And it will keep going like that. So the third time through this loop, number will have a value of 5, and then it'll have a value of 7, and then it will have a value of 9. So it just keeps going and going and going. Yeah, so hopefully that makes sense. It can be a little bit of a tricky concept to get your head around, the loop part, but hopefully a little bit of practice will help you get there. And I'm just going to print answer here at the end. But, well, what I could do if I actually do this, I'll indent this. So this will print answer every time through the loop. So if I run this, it should kind of print a couple of numbers. Now, I have an error there. Am I missing something, Corey?
Just a semicolon, I think.
That's exactly right, yeah. So a colon after a while loop or a for loop or an if statement. Okay, so there, the first time through the loop, answer is 1. Then the second time, it'll be 1 plus 3, which gave us 4. Then the third time, it'll be that 4 plus the next odd number, which was 5. And it keeps going until it gets to the end of the loop. And all the odd numbers added together are 25. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. And this is great for doing a little bit of maths, for kind of doing maths with big numbers. So most of us could probably add 1 and 3 and 5 and 7 and 9 pretty easily. But if you had to add up all the odd numbers between 1 and 100, it wouldn't take much code to change here. All you would need to do, you're still starting at 1. You're not going to 11 now. You're going up to 101 to make sure that you've included everything. And you're stepping up in 2 so that they're still odd numbers. And by making that small change, you've done an awful lot more maths very quickly. And you can see there's a big long list of numbers. So that's quite a big number when you add them all together, which you probably wouldn't be able to do in your head.
No,
Corey, you might be able to do it.
No, I would not.
Okay, so that's the first type of for loop. But there's another for loop that we're going to kind of focus on a little bit more today, and it's kind of to do with lists. So for loops are brilliant because they can look through lists and do stuff with the elements that are in a list. So I'm going to create a quick program here that kind of shows this. I'm going to create a class list with a couple of names in it. And Corey, I hope you don't mind. I might use your name.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm sure Amanda won't mind either. And I'll stick my name in as well. Okay, so this is a class of people, okay, and it's just a list of names. And what I'm going to do, now I spelled class wrong there. Perfect. What I'm going to do, I'm going to create a for loop to look through all of these names to check if someone is in the class or not, to see if their name is there. So I might just get the user to enter a name to check. So, sorry, please enter a name to check. And then I'm going to have check name as my variable equals to, and I'm going to have an input. This will just be a string, so I don't need to put int or float or anything in front of my input because the name is just going to be a string. Now, we're going to have our keyword for name in class list. So what this is doing is it's going to create a variable called name, and it's going to let name equal to everything in the class list one at a time. So the first time through the loop, the for loop, name will be equal to Corey. The second time through the list or through the loop, name will be equal to Amanda. And the third time, name will be equal to Damien. So it'll look through every single one of the elements of the list. And then we can do some comparing and stuff. So if name, so the name in the list, is the same as the check name, we're going to print out a message. We're going to print out that we'll say check name is in the class. Okay. And a pretty simple program there. Hopefully it'll work now if we run it. But all this is doing is when I type in a name here, when the user is asked for that, it's going to check if that name is in the list, if it's one of these 3 names. And if it is one of those 3 names, it'll print out this message. And if not, it'll do nothing. So we'll run this here and just see. So I'm going to check. I'll check Corey. Have I spelled that the same? I have. So I've checked Corey, and Corey is in the class.
Woo!
All right. Yeah. So she's part of that list, so she's in there. I'll just run it with a name that we don't have. So I'll just check Anna. So Anna is not in that list of names, so it won't print out this message because as it goes through all of the list, the variable name will never equal to Anna because none of these elements are Anna. And this is a really handy use of for loops. You can look through each thing in a list, and depending on what is in the list, we can do different things with it. So we might try and use this in a problem that we've kind of thought up of, Corey. You might be able to take us through that problem, would you?
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk through it. So our practice problem that Amy's going to go through now in a second is we have created our shopping list from earlier, okay? And now we want to actually work out what the total cost of all those items would be. And as Amy had said, we're going to use this using a for loop, but we're also going to use our if and elif statements that we worked on a couple of weeks ago. So we're going to add all the prices to a new list, okay? And the prices can be anything, we can make them up. And then what we want to do is we want to actually sum all of those prices together and print out the total cost, okay? So I think this is actually going to put most of the things that we've learned together, Damien, like our ifs, our elifs, our lists, variables. I'm excited.
Yeah, it really does tie everything together at the end. So we're going to use what we kind of created earlier. We're going to use our for or our kind of while loop and our problem from the home challenge a little while ago. And Corey, you might be able to help me with some of this, I'd say. We'll see how we go. So with this code or with this program here, we have used our while loop to keep asking us if we want to keep buying and buying and buying. And then when we're finished, we type no, and we get a list at the end of our problem. So we're going to try and use this list that we've made, and we're going to create a for loop to kind of look through all the elements of the list and decide how much everything is going to cost. So what we might do, we'll create a for loop here. And if you maybe didn't get this completed from before today's lesson, maybe pause the video now or pause and just catch up, go through the home challenge and make sure you're up to speed here, because you'll need what we've done earlier to help us with this part. So we'll create our for loop, and it's going to be for loop is going to be for items in my item list. Okay, so this is going to go and look through my item list. All right, and that's been made up from the user being asked, do you want to add items, yes or no? So this will change every time we run the program and depending on what we add, but it won't matter. Like once the items are in the list, we'll be able to work with it. Okay, now I have to decide whether the item in the item list is a football, a basketball, or a surfboard. Okay, and what I will do here, I'll go if item. So I'm using this variable here. If items equals to basketball. Okay, and I need a colon after that. I'm going to say that the cost of a basketball equals to, how much would a basketball cost, Corey, would you know?
Let's say €15.
€15. Okay, great. So the cost is €15. And then I want to add this cost to a list. But I've actually jumped the gun here a little bit, Corey. What would I need to do, or could you help me out here? If I want to add it to a list, I need to.
You need to actually create the list, and I suppose it'll probably be an empty list, will it?
Yeah. So it's always good practice to like create your empty list near the beginning of your program. So we might jump back here near the beginning, and I'll just make a costs list. And I'll have it empty, so there's nothing in it just yet, but I'll be able to append things to it then pretty easily once I have it created at the beginning. So, sorry, I've scrolled down too far there. Where are we looking? So we've created our cost list. Oh, I can't get this right.
Down a bit, I think. You're not far off.
It'll just come in here.
There you go.
So there's my cost list that I've created. And then, oh, too far. Now, so cost is equal to 15, and then we're going to append that to the list. So cost list dot append, and I'm going to append that cost. So it will add 15 to the list of costs that I'm going to have to work with. Or if the object in the list is not a basketball, then it could be
football.
Football, I think, was the next one we had.
Yes.
So items equals football. And we're going to have kind of the same thing. I might just put that down a line there. So we're going to have the same sort of idea. We need a cost for the football. So
let's go with €12.
Cost equals 12. And I'm going to append that to the list. I've indented that too far. So cost list dot append, and I'm going to append cost to that. And then finally, the last thing that I could have, so I've got else here. I could use an elif there as well, or Corey, you might like to just keep using ifs if you want to. So else, the last thing that it could be here is if it is a surfboard. So we'll say that the cost of a surfboard is, do you want to give me a price there, Corey?
25.
25. Okay. I don't even know if that's expensive or not.
Either way. Probably not.
Cost list dot append, and then cost. All right. Cost. Okay. So now we should have a list of all the costs. And what we might do, I might just print out my cost list at the end. So I'm going to come out of the for loop. I'm not going to indent this part because we're finished kind of searching through all of the items, and I'll just print out cost list here. So cost list, and we'll see if this runs. Now we might have made a mistake somewhere here, but so I have to go through the beginning of the program. So I'm adding a basketball, and then I want to add another item. So that actually skipped through. Oh, I only typed Y instead of yes. Sorry, we'll run that again. Let me run that again. Run this here. So one for a basketball, type yes to get another item, 2 for a soccer ball, and then that's it. I don't want to buy anything else. So I'm going to press no here. And then I have a basketball and a football in my list, and the cost of those is going to be 15 and 12.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and that's working great. But there's one last thing that we could do here. Corey, I don't know, can you remember, was there a way that we could add up all of the items in a list if we want to get the final cost?
Yeah, we can just sum them all using the keyword sum. But remember, we can't just do dot sum. We have to assign sum to a variable to print it out.
So I might create a variable called total cost equals to, and I'm going to use the keyword or the key command sum there. And inside sum, I'm putting in my cost list, the list of all the costs that we're going to have. And then I might just print a final message. So print your total cost is, and then I'm going to print out the variable total cost. Okay. We might just try to run this and see if we can get it to work. So Corey, you might take me through. What will I buy first?
A surfboard.
Surfboard. Okay. Do you want to buy anything else?
A basketball.
Basketball is number 1. And anything else?
No, I'm happy out.
You're happy with that? Okay.
Yeah.
So what we get here at the end is our list is a surfboard and a basketball, and your total cost is €40. And that would make sense because your surfboard was €25 and your basketball was €15. So that seems to be working pretty well.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I felt like I was doing a little bit of online shopping there.
There you go. Yeah. So like this is, we're at lesson 6 here now. So this is kind of complicated stuff. But if you're able to keep up with this, like this is the standard that is kind of expected at the end of Leaving Cert Computer Science and stuff. So if you're getting to here, you're doing really well, and really well done for sticking with us.
Yep, well done.
Corey, I might jump back to you if you want to take us through the end.
Yeah, definitely. So as Amy said, that is our last one. That's our 6th one. So let's go over what we actually went through today. Okay, so we looked at the other commands that we have. So we looked at .append last week, but this week we even used sum there, and we talked about .remove and .sort. We used a loop to calculate a big sum for a small piece of code. So we done that there when we were calculating through our surfboard and our basketballs and stuff. We looked at the words increment and decrement, I hope I'm saying that right, which just means to add and then to take away. And then we used a loop to look through a list of elements to carry out some action. So that was when we were looking through our class. Okay, now, as we said, this is our last webinar, but please keep in mind, just keep an eye on our Twitter handle, which is here, and follow the hashtag, because hopefully this won't be the end of it, or maybe even the summer, like we might be able to do something, you know, going into next year. So just keep an eye out to see if there's anything happening that you might be interested in. But until then, we do have some projects to keep you going, don't we, Damien?
Yeah, just keep people busy.
Yeah, keep you busy and keep you immersed in the language, okay, so of Python. So our first one is Home Challenge 1, a calculator. So what we want to do is we want to get the user to enter 2 separate integers and then add them, subtract them, multiply them, and divide them. And then print out the sum to all of the answers above, okay? Now, make sure your code is commented clearly so the user can understand what's going on and it's easy to follow, because remember, commenting your code is really good coding practice. And then if you get all that done and you just want a little bit more, or you want to work on something a little bit harder, well, you can do the extended version, which is you take a user input and ask the user if they would like to multiply, add, subtract, or divide instead of just doing it, okay? Ask the user what they would like to perform. Now, your second home challenge is a password checker. So you want to write a program that checks a password, okay? Have a password variable pre-programmed in the program. Get the user input, okay? So get the user to enter a password. And then if the password's correct, you're going to print a certain message. And then if it's incorrect, you'll print a separate message, okay? And if the password is then wrong for the second time, then a message should print to the screen that says the computer is locked, okay? So that's your second home challenge. So remember, even pause me and write these down, or take a screenshot of them if you want to work with these at home. And then our last challenge, challenge 3, is a grading system, okay? So this is when a teacher wants to find the average grade for a class of students. And they want you to create a program that will get the user to enter 5 numbers into the computer, put all the numbers into a list, and then print the list from smallest to biggest results, okay? So remember, you're going to use your commands for that one. Find the average of all the 5 numbers, and then print the results correct to 2 decimal places, okay? So you know the difference between integers and floats at this stage. Now, if you've done that and you found it easy, or you completed it, you can do the next extension, which is extension 1. And this is when the teacher doesn't have 5 students in every class. So she would like you to add to the program so she can enter the amount of students that she has in the class at the start. And then the program then asks her for that amount of results, okay? And then extension 2, so if you still haven't had enough, you can do this extension 2 of this, which is the computer should not accept any answers that are less than 100, or less than 0, or more than 100, okay? So you need to set it up so that if these numbers are actually entered into that program, it asks the user to actually resubmit the results to try again, okay? So well done, everyone, on all your hard work over the past 6 weeks. That's absolutely amazing. I had so much fun doing it. Did you, Damien?
Yeah, it was really good, actually. Really great to get through it all, yeah.
It was nice to see some of my faves again, like the if statements and the equals to sign. I did miss them. I didn't think I missed them at the time, but now I do miss them. Yeah. And remember, any of our resources and home challenges can be found at our aka.ms link, which is /homespace-files. Again, remember, if you are interested in the series and you want to learn more, hopefully there will be the opportunity to. So keep an eye on our Twitter and on our hashtag on Twitter. And for now, that's everything. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Guys, take care. Bye now.